The stars had never seemed so cold to Ambassador Velter of the Zapirian Council. He stood in the crystal-lit chamber of the High Assembly, 6 trembling arms pressed tight against his chest as the holoscreens around him shifted from one world to another. Each projection carried the same nightmare: empty cities, oceans boiled away, forests stripped down to raw dirt. The Devourers had come. The chamber was silent except for the low hum of translation orbs. Around Velter, representatives from a dozen different species sat in tense stillness. The luminari dimmed their crystalline glow until they looked like lumps of gray stone. The Velcani, fur soft and shimmering, clung to each other with wide, wet eyes. Even the gas-filled Arians, who usually floated with grace, sagged closer to the floor, their bodies heavy with despair. "Show them the Kepler system," Velter said. His voice cracked, the words barely more than a whisper. The holoscreens shifted. The once vibrant world of Kepler 7b, with its seas of sapphire and continents of emerald, was gone. In its place hung a sphere of brown ash. No waves, no clouds, no life, just silence. 17 billion souls, murmured Council Leader Zephon, his voice tight with grief. All gone in 3 months. The stillness that followed was unbearable. No one wanted to say the truth aloud. The Devourers were unstoppable. For 1,000 years, the galaxy had lived in peace. Warships had been dismantled, weapons preserved only in museums. Technology was dedicated to building, healing, exploring. But all of that meant nothing against the tide of hunger now sweeping across the stars. The Devourers were not a civilization. They had no language, no leaders, no motives beyond one: consume. They broke matter down at a molecular level, multiplied endlessly, and moved on. To reason with them was impossible. To outrun them was pointless. "We have tried everything," said Ambassador Krina of the Velcani, her voice soft and frayed like worn fabric. "Our brightest minds have studied them, our fastest ships have fled, nothing works." Commander Thex of the Arians rippled his gas body uneasily. "They always find us, they always catch us. It is only a matter of time." Velter let his eyes sweep the chamber. These beings were the greatest minds of the known galaxy. They had ended hunger, cured disease, and raised glittering cities that touched the sky. But their ancestors had been prey animals. They had survived by hiding, not by fighting. Now, before the Devourers, they were as helpless as their ancient kin. Then a small, uncertain voice cut through the gloom. "Ambassador," said Nexri, a young Zapirian technician. She raised one slender arm timidly. "We have been intercepting strange signals from the outer spiral." "Signals?" Velter frowned. "From who?" "From a small system far from our trade routes. A yellow star, 3rd planet. The beings there call themselves humans." The word seemed to hang in the air like a toxin. Disturbing, dangerous. "Show us," Zephon commanded. The holoscreens flickered. Images filled the chamber, broadcasts pulled from human transmissions. Unlike the tranquil scenes of alien worlds, these were visions of chaos. War after war, armies clashing across continents. Cities burning, skis filled with weapons that could erase millions in a heartbeat. Children marching in uniform before they could read. "They have been at war for their entire history," Nexri whispered. "They build weapons as easily as they build homes. They destroy as much as they create. They frighten even themselves." "Monsters," hissed an ambassador in the back. Velter's crystalline hands tightened on the rail before him. "Monsters, yes, but monsters who knew how to fight." "What do their current broadcasts show?" he asked. "They are at peace for now," Nexri said. "But only because each nation fears the others. They still arm themselves. They still train their soldiers. Even their exploration ships are built like war vessels." The chamber rippled with shock. The idea of willingly carrying weapons, of preparing for war without war, was unthinkable. Velter looked at the frightened faces around him. "We have a choice," he said, his voice low but steady. "We can die as prey, consumed by the Devourers while clinging to peace, or we can call upon monsters and hope they will fight in our name." Gasps echoed. Krina recoiled, her fur bristling. "You cannot be serious. At least the Devourers only eat. These humans might destroy us for pleasure." "And yet," Velter replied, "the Devourers will destroy every world. The humans may destroy us too, but with them there is at least a chance." Silence fell. A vote was called. 7 species, trembling but desperate, agreed. 5 refused and stormed out, choosing to hide alone. That night, Nexri worked without rest. She composed a message, simple and clear. Images of ruined worlds, maps of devourer swarms, and one final plea. "We are dying, you are warriors. We need your help, please answer." The message streaked across the void toward the small yellow star. Then they waited. For 3 days, nothing. Then the reply came. A single voice, rough and hard, filled the chamber. "We hear your call, we're coming." Even through the translator, the words struck the council like a thunderclap. Some flinched, others wept. Velter stood frozen before the console. His heart, crystalline and fragile, trembled with both hope and dread. They had summoned monsters, and the monsters had answered. The human ships did not glide, they prowled. 13 black hulls slid into formation with silent confidence, plating layered like armor over bone. Their engines hummed at a pitch that felt more like a growl than a tone. The alien fleet shifted away without meaning to, as if every vessel in the coalition had taken one hesitant step back. On the bridge of the UES Retribution, Admiral Connor Hayes folded his hands behind his back. He was a tall man with iron-gray hair and a face carved by long campaigns. His eyes were the color of gunmetal and just as cool. He watched the crystalline shapes of Zapirian cruisers glint in the distant light and thought of glass, beautiful, delicate, easy to cut. "Transmit, Lieutenant Price," he said. "Yes, sir." A moment later, the alien flagship answered. Ambassador Velter's image shimmered onto the main screen, lit by the soft glow of a crystal hall. He looked fragile and brave at the same time. His 6 arms were still, every finger locked to keep them from shaking. "Admiral Hayes," Velter said, voice high and musical through the ship's translator. "We welcome you, we thank you for coming." "We came fast," Hayes said. "Your message suggested we didn't have time to waste." Velter's 4 eyes flicked to either side. Behind him stood envoys of the coalition, Luminari dimmed to morning gray, Velcani with damp eyes, Arians flowing low over the floor as if afraid to rise. "Would you meet us aboard our flagship?" Hayes nodded. "We'll come in peace, but we'll come prepared." He cut the channel and turned to his officers. "Dress team only, sidearms, no long guns, we're guests, but we're not naive." A soft cough came from behind him. "Sir." The Admiral looked toward the speaker, a lean woman in a battered field jacket with grease under her nails and a faded scar crossing one brow. Chief Engineer Noah Hale would have been an odd sight on a diplomatic team if not for the circumstances. Hale was a combat engineer by training, the kind who could turn a pile of scrap into a bridge or a minefield. He had a habit of staring at problems the way a wolf studies a fence, looking for the gap. "It's an alien flagship," she said. "If anything goes wrong with containment, atmosphere, seals, or power, I want eyes and tools there. I'll keep back. I won't talk unless asked." Hayes's mouth twitched, the smallest hint of approval. "You're on, stay close to me or to Ruiz." Lieutenant Ava Ruiz, the liaison officer, snapped a crisp nod. She had been a medic before she took the uniform again. She carried herself like someone who had learned how to comfort and how to cut, and hated both equally. "Price, you have the deck," Hayes said. "If we go dark, you light the sky." "Yes, sir." The Zapirian flagship was a cathedral of light. They crossed through an airlock that opened like a blooming flower and stepped into a corridor where the walls pulsed with gentle luminescence, breathing almost. The floor sang faint notes as footsteps passed, a soft music that shifted with movement, turning the hallway into an instrument. Fragrance hung in the air, clean, sweet, like rain on hot stone. Ruiz breathed out softly. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Hale glanced up at the ceiling arches that curved like ribs. "It's a series of load-bearing lattices," she murmured, automatic. "Strong in compression, weak in impact, decorative and fragile like a vase." "Try to see art, Hale," Ruiz said. "I am," Hale replied. "It's just art that breaks." Ambassador Velter waited for them in a chamber of curtains and crystal. The other envoys formed a crescent behind him. Some stared. Some tried not to stare and failed. One Velcani reached for another's hand and squeezed it hard. "Please," Velter said, gesturing with a lower pair of arms toward a row of seats grown from crystal like clear trees. "Sit, we have much to share." Hayes sat, Ruiz sat to his right, Hale to his left. A white-sleeved security officer stood behind them, broad as a wall and silent as one. The introductions were brief. Titles and names meant little against the need. Velter began, voice soft, careful. He told them what they had already seen, Worlds reduced to silent shells, swarms that spread like oil on water, ships that ran and were caught. He showed images of devourer carpets moving over ground and sea, turning color into dust. He showed graphs and maps and heartbeats that had flattened into lines. Hayes listened without interrupting. When Velter was done, the Admiral leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands tented. "You've been fleeing," he said. "You were never built for fighting, but you sent a message to the worst fighters you could imagine because running out of Galaxy was worse." He held Velter's gaze. "You were right to call. We're what you need." The room's temperature seemed to fall a degree. Krina of the Velkani made a soft sound like a crushed leaf. "Do you hear yourselves?" she whispered. "You speak of yourselves as weapons." Ruiz stepped in before Hayes could answer. "We speak of choices," she said, gentle but steady. "You chose to save lives, we choose that too. Our methods are different because our world made us different." A luminary pulsed faintly. "Your world." Hale cleared her throat. "Earth is a hard place," she said simply. "The animals chase you. The storms rip your houses apart. The ground shakes. The water rises. The air catches fire. If you don't learn to build, you drown. If you don't learn to fight, you starve. We learned both." Velter's upper hands opened and closed, an unconscious gesture of anxiety. "We fear you," he admitted. "Your eyes look forward, not to the sides. You walk like hunters. Even your ship names sound like threats." "They are," Hayes said without apology. "Threats to threats." Silence stretched. Then Hayes stood and walked to the wall of crystal that looked out across space. The alien fleet glimmered like frost on black water. Beyond, the stars burned cold and clean. "We didn't come to conquer you," he said, still facing the view. "We came to keep you alive. If we stay, we'll ask you to change, to train, to build. It will scare you. It scares us, too. But the Devourers are not going to stop at your borders. They won't stop at ours either. They're a fire. We are a fire break." He turned. "Let us stand." Velter lowered his head, 4 eyes closing for a breath. When he opened them again, something new lived there, not comfort but resolve. "What do you need?" "Information," Hayes said. "Fast, precise, and freedom to move." Hale lifted a hand. "I'll also need a lab, heat-tolerant, sealed, access to your material archives," she added. "Anything that resists chemical breakdown, anything that repels, anything that confuses, and samples, ruins, soil, water, dust. If the Devourers break matter down, they leave signatures." "Samples," Krina repeated, alarm rising. From places they—" "From dead places," Hale said softly, "so we can stop more from dying." Nexri, who had been quiet behind Velter, stepped forward. She was younger than the others, her crystal skin brighter like new ice. "I can help," she said in a rush, then faltered as all eyes turned to her. I worked on the transmissions. I know the data. I can coordinate archives and prepare you a lab." Hale nodded once. "Good, work with me." Nexri's glow brightened a shade. Ruiz saw the change and tucked it away like a note. Hayes looked to the circle of envoys. "There's one more thing. We'll need to put down boots, not to occupy, to build defensive rings. Sensor nets. Kill zones. The Devourers are a tide. You don't fight a tide with a knife. You use seawalls and channels. You turn water against itself." Zephon, the council leader, pulsed a deeper tone. Zapirians sang when they made decisions. "We will grant this," he said, a chord of sorrow and acceptance. "But you must promise us something in return." "Name it." "When this is done," Zephon said, "you leave." Hale felt Ruiz go still beside her. Hayes didn't flinch. He knew a bargaining line when he heard one and the pain beneath it. "We will leave when the Devourers are not a threat to you," he said, "and when you can stand without us." Krina spoke, voice trembling. "You may never see that day." "Then we'll teach you how to make it," Ruiz said. The room breathed again, just a little. The lab Nexri prepared for Hale looked like a jewel box. Its walls were layered crystal and ceramic, its benches smooth and pale, its light bright without glare. Hale moved through it with careful hands, touching nothing she didn't have to touch, watching how vents opened and closed with the rhythm of an organ. "You've never built a pressure hood," she noted. "We do not handle toxins," Nexri said. "You do now?" Hale's tone wasn't cruel. It was factual, the way a weather report is factual even when it predicts a storm. They examined samples the Coalition had collected from dead coasts and hollow oceans, from places where the Devourers had passed like locusts and like acid. Hale ran them through heat, through cold, through sonic baths. She fed them light in narrow bands and flooded them with gases. She burned them. She froze them. She shook them until the glassware hummed. Nexri watched, taking notes with precise four-eyed focus. "You destroy in order to learn," she observed. "We stress," Hale corrected gently. "We see what snaps and what bends, we find the hinge." "You speak like a hunter." "Like an engineer," Hale said, after a moment. "Hunters and engineers look for weaknesses, one to kill, one to design around, same skill, different purpose." Nexri absorbed that, glow steady as she wrote. Across the fleet, Ruiz oversaw the first training lines on a friendly station, basic drills for volunteers from the Coalition. The Velkhani were nimble and quick to copy body language. The Aryans could flow through vents and cling to ceilings. The Luminari were slow but patient, able to hold a shield wall longer than any human. Ruiz adjusted for each, taught them breathing, stance, line of sight. She spoke softly, moved plainly, never raised her voice. When a Velkhani recruit froze during a simulated alarm, Ruiz took his trembling hands and put them on her pulse, let him feel the steady beat. "Match me," she said. In, out, in, out. Fear can sit with you, but it doesn't get to drive." By the third day, the recruits began to look at her without flinching. Admiral Hayes met with the Council, drafted corridors of movement across the stars, turned star charts into a hunter's map. He picked systems where the Devourers had not yet fed and marked them as lines to hold. He found dead worlds and marked them as fields to mine, places where the swarms could be channeled and burned. He called for satellite constellations that would see the swarms coming, for relay ships, for stations that could launch in minutes. "We will not chase them," he told the Council. "We will make them come to us." "Can you?" Zephon asked. Hayes's smile was small and terrible. "We can make anything come to a sound it fears." Krina shivered. On the fifth day, Hale and Nexri found their hinge. They had been running a series of long, boring tests, chemical spectra and resonance curves that rolled across displays like sleepy rivers. Hale's eyes barely moved, but Ruiz, who had come to watch between training sessions, could see the engineer feeling the data the way a pianist feels keys, through skin and bone. "Again," Hale said. Nexri turned a dial. Soft blue light bathed the sample. A thin smear of Devourer residue dried onto a glass slide. "Up a notch." The blue shifted toward violet. The glass shook the tiniest bit. On the screen, a ripple. Hale leaned closer. "There." "What am I seeing?" Ruiz asked. "A coordination drop," Hale said. "They use chemical signals to move as one. That spectrum scrambles it like throwing static into a flock's mind. They don't stop, but they stop being a swarm. They start being 1,000 confused things. Confused things are easy to trap." Nexri's glow quickened. "A song they cannot stand." "Something like that," Hale said. "We'll need power, we'll need carriers, we'll need to know how deep it penetrates, whether they adapt, whether they—" A chime cut her off. A second chime, then a third, louder and faster. The lab lights shifted to amber. Ruiz was already on her feet, hand at her comm. "Ruiz, go." The voice on the other end was tight with controlled panic. "All channels alert, distress from Haven's span. Repeat, Haven's span, outer belt colony. They're seeing dustfall that eats." Nexri's glow dimmed. "Haven's span," she whispered. "That is a mixed world, Zapirian miners, Velkhani families, Luminari builders, if it falls." Hale was moving, packing the slide, the logs, the rough stack of equations she had scrawled onto a wall in charcoal when the Zapirian stylus annoyed her. She shoved the papers into a satchel already stained with engine grease. "Admiral, going to need a toy that breaks swarms," she said. "We're not ready." Ruiz touched her arm. "We're never ready, we go anyway." They ran. The command chamber felt smaller with everyone inside. Velter's envoys, human officers, Aryan air swimmers perched near vents. The holoscreen over the table showed Haven's span, a rocky world girdled by a thin ring and a spread of small habitats connected by arches and tunnels. Dust was falling through the atmosphere like slow gray rain, and where it touched land, the land went dull, then dark, then gone. Admiral Hayes stood with his hands flat on the table. The room vibrated, faint but steady, as the Retribution's engines pushed beyond gentle maneuvers into acceleration that could crack ribs if the inertial dampers failed. "Haven span is within our corridor," Hayes said. "We plan to fortify it in 6 days. We don't have 6 days, we have 6 hours." Zephon's crystal hum went taut with fear. "How many lives?" 200,000 on the ground, Ruiz said, "if the outer farms still stand." Krina's eyes shone. "Children," she whispered. Hale had already sketched a transmitter on a tablet, coils, lenses, directional arrays. I can build a prototype, she said. Big one's better, but even a small unit will peel the swarm. We put it on a shuttle, we skim the dust, we make a gap. We drop shield wagons into the gap. We hold. Velter turned 4 eyes on her. Shield wagons. Mobile barriers, Hayes said. Old Earth trick, you put a wall where the flood goes, you make the flood go somewhere else. The Aryan Commander Thex rose a hand, vapor swirling. Our people can flow into damaged vents, hold the lines that leak. We can keep air where air should be, but we cannot stand against dust that eats. You won't have to, Hale said. If this works, the dust won't know where to go. Zephon's hum shifted, a chord of fragile hope. What do you require? Power, Hale said. A shuttle, lenses, anything that bends light without scattering it, and permission to break your regulation on no cutting holes in nice crystal things. Velter's hands opened in a gesture Hale had learned meant bitter humor. Engineer Hale, in 5 days you've already cut more holes than our children do in 5 years. Take what you need. Ruiz touched the Admiral's sleeve. Sir, I'll lead the ground evac. If the dust strips the outer ring first, we can pull the families through tunnels to the core habs. Hayes studied her. You're not infantry anymore, Lieutenant. No, Ruiz said. I'm a medic who knows how to make people move when they think they can't. That's what we need. He nodded. Take 2 squads and an Aryan line. You're the last out. And me? Asked a new voice. Nexri stood in the doorway, small satchel clutched to her chest. What do I do? Hale turned. You stay with me, she said. You've got 4 eyes and 2 brains. I need both. Nexri's glow rose a breath. She nodded hard. The retribution rolled into a burn that pressed every chest in the room. The stars swung. The gray sphere of Haven's span grew on the screen, dust already smearing the upper atmosphere like dirty milk. Hayes looked at the clock at the distance, at the thin curve of time between now and never. He raised his voice, and when he did, the deck seemed to listen. All hands, he said. This is not a battle. This is a rescue under fire. We are going to draw a line and hold it with our bodies if we must. We are going to keep those people breathing. We are going to prove to a galaxy that asked for monsters that monsters can carry stretchers too. Do your work. Trust your team. Come home. The ship answered with a low, hungry hum. In the shuttle bay, Hale and Nexri built their first swarm splitter out of parts that were not meant to sit together. Zapirian wave guides, human power cells, luminary prisms that sang when light passed through them. Hale's hands moved like she was braiding, pulling 3 technologies into a single cord. Nexri kept the readings steady, catching fluctuations before they climbed. Name, Hale asked as she tightened the last brace. Nexri blinked. Name. Everything that saves a life needs a name, Hale said, then shrugged. Superstition, humor me. Nexri looked at the lens that would scream light and shook once. Call it hope. Hale grunted. Not original, she said, but you're right. They bolted Hope to the nose of a drop shuttle and wheeled the craft toward the launch rail. The bay doors split. A gale of stars opened. Ruiz jogged past with her ground team, 2 human squads, an Aryan wind line swirling through vents like a silver ribbon, and a Velcani guide whose eyes were rimmed red but steady. She slapped Hale's shoulder as she went. Build it loud, Ruiz said. Move them fast, Hale replied. The shuttle crews ran quick checks. Power good, lenses good, turreted shields powered up like little suns. On my mark, Hayes said in their ears. 3, 2, 1, burn. The first shuttle launched, then the second. Engines fired white. They dropped like stones, then curved toward the dust. On the main screen, Haven's span filled the field. The dust looked like smoke at a funeral, beautiful and terrible all at once. Where it touched rock, rock became a darker shade, then a darker one, then nothing. Small shapes ran between hab buildings, Velcani adults carrying children, luminari moving in slow, careful steps, Zapirians leaning into each other like reeds in wind. Nexri's fingers tightened on her console. So many, she said. So many to save, Hale answered. Shuttle 1, Hayes called. Bring Hope online. In the nose of Shuttle 1, the lens sang. Light poured. It wasn't a beam you could see, a clear spear. It was a wash across the sky, a field that shifted through blue and violet and a shade past violet that made Nexri's eyes ache. The dust paused, the dust wavered, then the dust broke. The smooth curtain became patchwork. The river became rain, swirls tore away from swirls, threads from cloth. The Devourer carpet lost its mind. Gap Hale snapped, now drive the wedge. The shuttle knifed forward through the shredded dust. Behind it, Shield Wagon 7 dropped, 6 legs, 3 plates, 1 generator that threw a barrier like a clear wall that rippled when wind hit it. It landed in the center of the gap and spread its plates wide. Wagon 7 holding, came a ground voice. Wagon 8 in. On the screen, Ruiz and her team reached the outer farms. They moved like a river too, flowing people into tunnels, calming, lifting, carrying. At one point, Ruiz knelt in the dust beside a small Velcani child who had lost a shoe and didn't want to move without it. Ruiz pulled the child's other shoe off, tied both to her own belt, and picked the child up. "We'll look for them later," she said. "Right now we run." "Wagon 9 in," the ground voice said. "Nine's power is 9 is." Static, then screaming, then silence. "Power loss," Nexri said, voice sharp. "Nine's barrier dipped, dust reached plate seam. It is," she swallowed. "It is gone." Hale's jaw clenched. "Wagon 10 fill, use 8's anchor." "Copy." On the holoscreen, a Devourer eddy looped, confused by Hope's song. It found a corner of a building where shadow and angle gave it shelter, and it surged there, gnawing at the gap's edge. "Shuttle 2, right flank," Hayes barked. "Give me more light, break that curl." "Copy, retribution." The second shuttle swung wide. Its lens screamed its silent scream. The curl unraveled. For a breath, it worked. And then the Devourers changed. They darkened. The smooth gray of the dust picked up flecks of black. The flecks weren't random. They arranged themselves like a pattern on a moth's wing. The light hit them and slid, not all of it, enough to keep a portion of the swarm thinking linked. Nexri's hand flew across controls. "They adapt," she said, tone quivering. "They are changing surface chemistry. They learn the song." Hale stared at the screen, then at her equations, then at Hope's vibrating frame. "They're not supposed to learn this fast," she said softly. On the ground, Ruiz looked up and saw the dust regain its cohesion at the gap's far edge. It thickened, then leaned. She felt the pressure change on her skin, the way a storm leans before it falls. "Admiral," Ruiz said, voice level only because she forced it flat. "We are not going to make it to the core if that wall reforms. We need another gap." "We don't have another hope," Hayes said. "Hale." Hale's mouth went dry. She looked at the overtaxed generator, at the lens already singing itself toward fracture. She looked at Nexri, whose glow had dimmed to a coal. "Then we get close," Hale said. "Closer than we should, inside their field. We shove the song down their throat." Hayes began. "Sir, it's this or we watch them eat a town," Hale said. "I didn't come across half a galaxy to watch." She slapped the shuttle comm. "Shuttle 1, adjust vector, you're going to skim the wall." "We skim the wall, we lose paint," the pilot said. "We skim the wall, we lose paint," Hale agreed. "We don't, we lose people, choose." The pilot chose. The shuttle tilted, the view swung. The dust filled the screen gray, then darker gray, then black shot through like ink in water. The lens screamed. The frame rattled, bolts creaked like teeth grinding. And then the Devourer wall loomed like a cliff, so close that Ruiz, watching from the surface, could see it moving as if it were breathing. "Hold," Hayes said quietly to the ship, to the shuttle, to the universe. "Hold." The shuttle knifed into the shadow of that impossible living thing. The world went blind. For a breathless second, the shuttle's nose disappeared into the gray-black cloud. Warning screamed. Hull integrity dropped. The cabin lights flickered. Nexri clutched the console so tightly her crystal skin left hairline fractures in the smooth surface. Hale's jaw locked, every nerve braced for the hiss of air loss. Then Hope screamed louder. The lens at the shuttle's prow burst into white-violet radiance, a color that clawed at sight and thought. The Devourer swarm convulsed. The mouth that had opened to devour the craft shuddered, stuttered, and split into a dozen writhing tendrils. The shuttle burst through the other side, paint scorched, plating pitted but alive. "Gap open," Hale shouted. "Drive the wagons in now." On the ground, Ruiz's voice came ragged but steady. "Copy. We're moving families through. Tunnels are clear for now. Repeat, clear for now." On the holoscreen aboard the Retribution, Admiral Hayes leaned forward, hand gripping the rail. His eyes followed the jagged wound torn in the Devourer curtain. The dust reeled like a beast that had been struck, coordination broken. For the first time in recorded history, the swarm had recoiled. "Good work, Shuttle," Hayes said. "Fall back and hold pattern, let the ground teams breathe." But Hale was shaking her head. "It's not enough," she said, voice low. "They're already knitting back, they're building a new wall." Nexri's glow flickered like a dying flame. "They adapt. Faster than we thought. They will close the wound before evacuation finishes." Ruiz's transmission cut back in, harsher now, the sound of boots and crying children behind her words. "Admiral, we're still pulling hundreds through. If that wall closes." Hayes slammed his fist against the console. "Options, Hale." Her mind raced like fire over dry grass. The single shuttle-borne lens couldn't hold. Scaling the design would take weeks they didn't have. Unless... She snapped her fingers. "We need resonance, not one note but a chord." Nexri's eyes widened. "Multiple wavelengths." "Exactly," Hale said. "They can adapt to one frequency but not a shifting pattern. If we overlap 3, no, 4 spectra, we make static they can't predict." "Can you build it?" Hayes demanded. Hale's mouth twisted. "Not in time, but we can fake it." She jabbed a finger toward the holomap of the fleet. "Zapirian ships use crystal arrays for communication. Luminari have harmonic projectors. Arians can modulate gas chambers, tie them together, fire in sequence. We don't build one chord, we become one." Velter's 4 eyes widened. "You want us to sing?" "Yes," Hale snapped. "Louder than we've ever sung before." The chamber buzzed with unease. Coalition envoys whispered in fear. To weaponize their sacred technologies, machines meant for healing, guiding, building, was unthinkable. But on the screen, Haven's span burned. The dust swirled like storm clouds with teeth. Families ran under violet-lit skis. Children sobbed. Soldiers fell back, their shields dissolving in gray spray. Velter's arms opened, then lowered in a gesture of resignation. "Show us how." The next hour was madness. Zapirian technicians rerouted crystal harmonics into raw channels. Luminari dimmed their bodies until the very light in their veins powered the projectors. Arians flowed into their ship cavities, reshaping chambers into instruments of war. Humans patched cables, dragged power cells, welded couplers. Hale and Nexri ran from ship to ship, from console to console. Hale barked adjustments, rewired circuits with bare hands, cut through alien delicacy with human bluntness. Nexri translated, soothed, explained, begged her people to trust. When it was done, the fleet floated like an orchestra at rest, every ship trembling with potential. Hayes stood on the Retribution's bridge, voice cold steel. "On my mark, 3, 2, 1, play." The galaxy sang. It wasn't music, not really. It was vibration made fury, light bent into knives, frequencies colliding. From the fleet poured a rolling thunder of sound and radiation that cut across vacuum. The Devourer swarm spasmed. Its cohesion shattered like glass struck by a hammer. The black-veined dust lost rhythm, broke apart, spun in wild confusion. For the first time, the predators of the galaxy were prey to something they could not understand. "Gap holding," Nexri cried, voice trembling with disbelief. "It works." On the surface, Ruiz drove her evac line through the tunnels as the dust collapsed into chaos above. She carried a Velcani child on her hip, another clinging to her sleeve. "Keep moving," she shouted over the roar. "Don't look back." Behind her, a Luminari shield wall cracked. Ruiz shoved 3 civilians through the final gate and turned back for the fallen. She hauled the crystalline being upright with a grunt, ignoring the cuts along her arm. "You stand, you live," she hissed, and dragged him through. But victory carried a shadow. As the fleet's song tore the swarm apart, fragments of Devourer matter streamed away, scattering into orbit into the ring debris into the dark. Not destroyed, just dispersed. Colonel Wright's recon frigate circling above reported in. "Sir, we're seeing splinter dispersal. They're not beaten, they're fleeing. Into the ring, into the asteroids, into every shadow they can find." Hayes's face went hard. "They'll regroup." "Yes, sir," Wright said grimly. "And when they do, they'll know the song." Hours later, the evac was complete. 200,000 lives pulled through fire. Haven's span still smoked, its outer ring scarred, its fields ruined, but its people lived. In the council chamber aboard the Zapirian flagship, exhaustion draped every figure like a shroud. The aliens were pale, dim, trembling. The humans were bruised, scorched, eyes red from smoke and strain. Velter rose slowly. Today, you proved what none of us believed possible. The Devourers can be made to bleed. Krina's soft fur bristled. And you proved something else, she said, voice low. You proved you are even more terrifying than they are. Her words fell like stones. Many nodded, too tired to hide their fear. Even as gratitude burned, dread burned with it. Hale leaned against a console, grease smearing her cheek, and muttered, You called for monsters. Don't flinch when they arrive. But Ruiz saw Nexri's glow, faint but steady, watching Hale not with fear but with something else, something like faith. That night, as Haven's span turned beneath them, Admiral Hayes studied the stars from his cabin. His reflection stared back from the glass, hard, lined, unyielding. He thought of the word the aliens whispered, monsters. And maybe they were right. Because monsters were what the galaxy needed. Then his comm crackled. Sir, Recon Net just picked up something in the outer belt. Movement patterns, not Devourers, not ours. Hayes turned, every nerve cold. Show me. The feed lit up, shadows gliding behind the asteroids. Ships, not human, not coalition, watching. Identify, Hayes barked. The sensor officer's voice shook. Unknown faction, but they're not attacking the Devourers, they're following us. The asteroid belt around Haven's span glittered with the wreckage of broken rocks and fragments of Devourer dust. But something else moved there, shapes too smooth, too deliberate to be stone. On the Retribution's bridge, the feed sharpened. Hulls emerged from shadow, sleek knife-thin ships painted in midnight tones that drank the stars. No heat signatures, no broadcast beacons, just silence and motion. Admiral Hayes leaned forward, his jaw a hard line. Magnify. The image zoomed. The ships bore markings, symbols etched like scars along their spines. Not Zapirian, not Velcani, not any coalition ally. Unknown configuration, reported Price, voice tight. They've been here a while, sir, just watching. Number 24 minimum, more hiding in the belt. The room held its breath. Velter's image flickered onto the secondary screen. His crystalline eyes were wide. Admiral Hayes, those vessels, they are not Devourer, and yet we do not know them. Somebody knows them, Hayes said flatly. Nobody builds warships that pretty without purpose. Ruiz stepped up to the console, frowning. Could they be another prey species, someone who hid while the Devourers spread? Hale snorted, arms crossed. Prey don't design hulls like knives, those are predators or wannabes. A silence fell that even the hum of the ship could not soften. Then the unknown fleet spoke. A voice cut across the comms, sharp as broken glass, filtered through layers of distortion. So the legends are true. The monsters of the blue world rise at last. The bridge lights seemed to dim. Hayes kept his face unreadable. Identify yourselves. Laughter answered, metallic and cold. We are the Cathari, the ones your coalition never told you about. While they played at peace, we remembered the old ways. While they dismantled weapons, we sharpened ours. We watched the Devourers spread. And now, we watch you. Hale muttered, great, an audience. The voice continued. You strike the swarm and break it apart. Impressive. But do you know what you have done? You've drawn their eyes. They will come in greater numbers. And when they do, you will not hold. Hayes narrowed his eyes. Then why are you here to mock us? To warn you and to measure you. The comm cut. The Cathari ships shifted formation, blades glinting in starlight, not approaching, not retreating, waiting. The council chamber blazed with arguments. This is madness, Krina hissed, fur rippling with fear. The Devourers are one horror, but these Cathari another predator. We cannot survive both. Zephon's hum was low, strained. Perhaps they seek alliance. Or conquest, Thex countered, vapor curling in agitation. Hayes stood silent, letting them argue, letting the storm roll until it burned itself thin. Then he spoke, voice cutting through like steel. They're testing us. That's all predators ever do. If we show weakness, they'll strike. If we show strength, maybe they'll back off. Either way, we don't cower. Velter turned to him, 4 eyes filled with unease. You humans face everything as if it were a duel. What if this is different? It isn't, Hayes said simply. Every threat is the same at the core. You survive by standing, not by running. Nexri's glow flickered. But what if standing makes us their next target? Hale looked up from the schematics she'd been scrawling across the table's surface. Her hands were black with graphite and grease, her eyes bloodshot but sharp. Then we make sure we're not easy meat. Devourers are afire. These Cathari, they're wolves. Wolves respect teeth. The chamber fell into uneasy silence. Later in the engineering bay, Hale worked alongside Nexri, soldering human couplers to Zapirian waveguides. Sparks danced across her gloves, leaving faint burns. "You humans," Nexri began, then trailed off. Hale glanced at her. "Say it." "You are terrifying," Nexri admitted. "But also I feel safe near you. How can both be true?" Hale smiled without humor. "Because we're tools, Nex. A hammer terrifies glass, but it builds houses too. It's all about what hand holds it." Nexri tilted her crystalline head. "And whose hand holds you?" Hale didn't answer right away. She thought of Hayes, of Ruiz, of the soldiers hauling children through smoke. Then she muttered, "We hold each other. That's the only reason we haven't broken." On the surface of Haven's span, Ruiz walked the temporary camps set up after the evac. Velkhani children clung to their parents. Luminari hummed low tones of grief. Aryans drifted like shadows in the rafters. She moved among them with quiet purpose, checking wounds, offering calm words. A young Velkhani boy tugged her sleeve. His fur was singed, his eyes wide. "Are you going to leave us?" he asked. Ruiz knelt, looking him in the eye. "Not until you can stand on your own," she said. "But they're afraid of you," he whispered. Ruiz's throat tightened. She brushed his head gently. "Fear isn't always bad. Sometimes fear means respect, and sometimes it keeps monsters away." The boy blinked up at her. "Are you a monster?" She smiled sadly. "The good kind." Back on the Retribution, alarms shattered the fragile calm. "Contact," Price shouted. "Outer ring, the Devourer fragments, they're reforming." The holoscreen flared. In the shadow of the asteroids, the scattered dust drew together, pulled by unseen signals. Tendrils linked. Patches fused. A new swarm was forming, smaller than the first but faster, hungrier. And beyond it, the Cathari ships drifted, watching, waiting. "Admiral," Wright barked over comms, "if we engage the fragments, we expose our flank to the Cathari." "And if we don't engage?" Hayes asked. "Then Haven's span burns." The bridge went still. Hale slammed her palm on the console. "We've got one lens, one fleet song, and one shot. If we hit the swarm hard enough, maybe the Cathari will think twice about picking the bones." "Or maybe," Ruiz's voice came over the comm, "they'll decide we're worth killing before we grow stronger." Hayes's eyes narrowed, steel against shadow. "Either way, we stand." He pointed at the holomap. "Form the line, bring the song back up. We'll burn the swarm and let the wolves see our teeth." The Coalition fleet shifted, battered but ready. Crystals glowed, gas chambers pulsed, human warships bared their guns. The new Devourer swarm surged from the asteroids, a storm of gray-black hunger. And in the distance, the Cathari fleet curved into a crescent, silent and still, watching, waiting to see if the monsters from Earth could truly hold the line. The Devourer swarm fractured like a storm split by lightning. Half surged toward Haven's span, teeth bared for the wounded colony. The other half veered, drawn by heat, motion, and perhaps instinct, straight toward the waiting Cathari. On the Retribution's bridge, Admiral Hayes stood rigid, his face unreadable. "Admiral," Price said, voice sharp, "the swarm is splitting. We've never seen them do that." Hale muttered, "They've never had two prey targets this close before." She glanced at Nexri, whose glow flickered with alarm. "We're teaching them new tricks just by existing." Velter's image appeared on the secondary holo. His crystalline voice trembled. "They go for the Cathari as well. Perhaps that is justice." "Or a trap," Hayes said. "Predators don't like to share." On the holoscreen, the Cathari finally moved. Sleek warships that had only circled now flared to life, engines burning blue-white. Lines of light erupted from their flanks, beams sharp and focused as scalpels. Devourer matter vaporized in neat, surgical cuts. The bridge crew watched, startled. "They're holding," Ruiz said quietly over comms from the ground. "They're cutting through like surgeons." Hayes's eyes narrowed. "Watch closer." The beam sliced true, but the swarm shifted. Devourer fragments absorbed the energy, black flecks spreading faster across their surfaces. Where the beams cut one piece, 5 smaller ones wriggled free, like slicing a worm. Wright's voice snapped across comms. "Sir, the Cathari are learning the same thing we did. Direct fire makes them multiply." On screen, a Cathari ship vanished beneath a wave of dust. Another broke formation, trailing debris like smoke. The crescent line bent, then faltered. "They're not built for swarm tactics," Hale muttered. "Too clean, too elegant. They fight like duelists, not brawlers." Nexri's glow dimmed. "They will fall." The bridge crew turned toward Hayes, waiting. The unspoken question weighed the air. Do they let the wolves bleed? Silence stretched. Hayes broke it with a single order. "Lock batteries on the swarm. Prepare fleet song." Gasps echoed from the coalition envoys patched into the channel. Krina's voice shook. "You would help them, after their arrogance, after their threats." "Yes," Hayes said simply, "because this isn't about liking them. It's about killing the thing that eats us all. If the Cathari die, we're weaker tomorrow. If they live, we're stronger, even if they hate us for it." "Or turn against us," Thex hissed. Hayes's jaw set, one war at a time. The retribution led the charge. Zapirian harmonics rang out, luminary projectors pulsed, Aryan chambers resonated, and human cannons thundered. Together they wove another storm song, the discordant chord that shattered cohesion. The swarm convulsed, tendrils split, fragments reeled, the pressure on the Cathari line eased. On the screen, their ships paused, as if stunned by the interference. Then, without a word of thanks, they reformed into a tight spearhead and drove through the staggered swarm. Blades of blue light cut cleaner now, guided by the chaos humanity had made. Hale exhaled, sweat streaking her face. "They're using our gap just like us." Ruiz's voice came from the surface, urgent. "Admiral, that bought us time. Civilians are nearly through the tunnels, but the swarm's still thick near the farms. We need another gap or we lose hundreds." Hayes glanced at Hale. She swore softly. "We can overload the lens, one last push. After that, it melts itself." "Do it," Hayes ordered. In the shuttle bay, Hale and Nexri worked furiously. The lens, Hope already sang with strain, its crystalline heart spiderwebbed with fractures. Nexri's hands moved faster than Hale had ever seen, 4 eyes darting over readings. "It will not survive," Nexri said. "It doesn't have to," Hale replied, yanking another power cell into the housing. "It just has to scream loud enough." They locked it in place. The shuttle crews braced. "Launch," Hale ordered. The shuttle burned through the atmosphere, Hope flaring violet-white. The devourer swarm convulsed, tearing open in a jagged wound wide enough for the last evacuees to escape. Ruiz pushed her people through, one hand gripping a Velkhani mother, the other pulling a luminary child. Behind them, the swarm buckled, disoriented by Hope's death song. "Evac complete," Ruiz gasped into comms. "But we're still in the tunnels, dust is flooding in from vents, we're cut off." The holoscreen showed it. The swarm had slithered past the barrier and into the undertunnels, pouring like smoke toward the trapped evacuees. "Damn it," Hayes growled. "We're out of time." On the other side of the battlefield, the Cathari fleet had steadied. Their ships moved with ruthless precision now, cutting the swarm apart with surgical beams. And then, for the first time, they spoke again. The same broken glass voice filled the channel. "You bleed for those who hate you. You strike for those who will never thank you. Why?" Hayes's answer was iron. "Because we can." A pause, then "Your prey confuses us." "Get used to it," Hayes snapped. The comm went dead. But a moment later, 3 Cathari ships peeled off and dove toward the swarm, threatening the tunnels. Their beams slashed vents clear, carving a path for Ruiz and her civilians to escape. In the tunnels, Ruiz heard the shriek of beams cutting stone. Dust dissolved. A shaft of light broke through. She didn't stop to wonder. She drove her people through the breach, dragging the last Velkhani child into open air. Her comm crackled. "Evac secure, we're out." On the Retribution's bridge, the crew exhaled as one. Nexri sagged against Hale, glow flickering faintly, exhausted but alive. Hayes gave the final order. "Coalition, concentrate fire, finish the swarm." The galaxy sang one last time, and the devourer fragments scattered, retreating into the dark. Silence returned to the stars. The Cathari fleet drifted in formation, many ships scarred, one gutted entirely. They had bled, but they still stood. Their voice returned, low and cold. "You are not prey, perhaps not even monsters, something else. We will remember this." Their ships turned in unison and slid back into the shadows of the belt, vanishing like ghosts. In the council chamber, Zephan hummed a long, somber chord. The wolves bleed, yet they do not fall, and now they know us. They know you. Velter's eyes fixed on Hayes. You saved them, but at what cost have we traded one predator for another? Hayes didn't answer right away. He looked out at the stars where the Cathari had vanished. His voice was quiet but hard. We'll cross that bridge when they come for it. For now, we keep standing. That night, Ruiz sat among the evacuees, tending to burns and broken bones. A Velkhani child she'd saved earlier curled against her side, eyes finally closing in sleep. Hale worked alone in the lab, staring at the shattered remains of hope. She touched the cracked lens with calloused fingers and whispered, "Not bad for a first song." And in the dark, Nexri wrote quietly in her log, "The monsters saved us again. Perhaps monsters are what hope looks like in a universe built on hunger." But far beyond Haven's span, in regions no coalition ship dared to travel, a ripple spread. The Devourers had been hurt, the Cathari had been tested, and something older, colder stirred in the void, listening to the clash of monsters and prey, waiting for its own time to arrive. The report arrived like a ghost, fragmented by static. 2 words only. "They're coming." On the Retribution's bridge, the crew stared at the broken transmission. The feed ended in silence, no further updates, no distress call, just a void where voices should have been. Admiral Hayes stood still, his knuckles white on the rail. Playback again. They played it, the same distortion, the same final words. Ruiz crossed her arms, the cuts on her arms still raw from Haven's span. "Devourers." Price shook her head. "No, the energy profile doesn't match. These signatures are clean, structured, too clean." Nexri's glow dimmed, structured like technology. "Exactly," Hale muttered. "We're not looking at locusts this time, we're looking at architects." The silence deepened. Hours later, the Coalition Council convened aboard the Zapirian flagship. The chamber pulsed with anxious light. Voices overlapped in fear. "This cannot be," Krina cried, fur trembling. "We have just survived one nightmare. We cannot face another." Thecks of the Aryans swirled like a storm cloud. "Yet we must. The signal is clear. Something vast is moving inward." Zephon's hum filled the air, heavy with dread. "Our ancestors told stories of builders beyond the rim, beings who shaped stars then vanished. We call them myths, perhaps not myths." Hayes cut through the noise. "Whatever they are, they're not friendly. You don't silence a station unless you want no witnesses." Velter looked at him, 4 eyes glittering. "And what would humans do?" Hayes's answer was ice. "Prepare for war." Back aboard the Retribution, Hale and Nexri pored over sensor logs. Faint energy trails stretched across the dark, too vast to belong to single ships. "It's like watching a continent move," Hale whispered. "Not ships, armadas of linked structures, cities that travel." Nexri shivered, her glow pale. What could build such things? Hale gave her a tired, lopsided smile. Same answer as always, hands that never stopped building. Nexri hesitated, then asked, "Can even monsters fight gods?" Hale didn't reply. Meanwhile, Ruiz walked Haven's span, now a city of tents and temporary shelters. Children played between makeshift corridors. Velkhani hummed soft lullabies. Luminari dimly glowed like watchfires in the night. She paused at a water station where a Velkhani mother poured a drink for her child. The mother looked up, eyes wet but steady. "You saved us," she said, "but now we hear whispers of another storm. Tell me, human, do you never rest?" Ruiz knelt so their eyes met. "Not until the storms do." The mother touched her child's head, then whispered, "Then perhaps we must learn to be storms too." 2 days later, reconnaissance drones returned from the rim. Only fragments of data, but enough. The images were grainy, distorted by distance. Structures larger than moons. Geometries that twisted perception. Towers like spines, rings like halos, webs of light connecting across the void. Nexri gasped. They moved together, not as a fleet, as a single organism. Hale rubbed her temple. "Machines, artificial, and judging by scale, they don't just travel, they harvest. Entire systems at once." Hayes's voice was grim, "And they're headed for the core." The council erupted in panic. Zephon's voice quivered. "If the Devourers were hunger, this is annihilation. No flesh, no life, no weakness." Krina snapped, "Then we must hide, flee inward, deeper into the arms of the stars." "No," Hayes cut her off. Running just paints you as prey. You run, they chase. You fight, maybe they bleed. The aliens stared at him, fear and disbelief colliding. Then what are they? Velter asked softly. Hayes's answer chilled the room. Machines that look at us the way we looked at the Devourers, something messy, inefficient to be erased. That night in the engineering bay, Hale and Nexry argued over schematics. We can't outgun them, Hale said, packing. Their structures are too massive. Even if every coalition ship fires, we'd be gnats on an elephant. Then outthink them, Nexry said. You told me hunters look for hinges, find theirs. Hale stared at her, then smirked faintly. Look at you, learning to hunt. Nexry's glow brightened, shy but proud. In the mess hall, Ruiz gathered human soldiers and alien volunteers. She stood on a crate, looking at faces weary but determined. I won't lie to you, she said. We bled on Haven's span, we'll bleed again. But hear me, bleeding doesn't mean breaking. We've proved we can stand. We've proved monsters can carry the weak. And now, when the sky darkens again, we'll stand taller. The Velcani recruits raised their heads. Luminari pulsed brighter. Even the Aryans swirled with steadier form. Hope flickered like a spark in the dark. Days later, the first machine structures breached the rim. Colonel Wright's recon frigate transmitted live feed. The screen filled with horror, titanic constructs sliding between stars, not sleek like Cathari blades, not wild like Devourer swarms. Ordered, precise, perfect. A voice broke through the static, metallic, unified. Biological life is inefficient. You will be optimized or eliminated. The council chamber froze. Hayes whispered, they talk. Hale muttered, worse, they judge. The first attack came swift. A mining outpost on the rim vanished beneath beams of light that stripped matter at the molecular level. Stone turned to dust, dust to energy, energy fed into the machine web. Not conquest, consumption with purpose. Price's voice cracked. Sir, we're watching them unmake a planet. Hayes stared at the screen, his voice low, steady, terrible. Then it's official. The Devourers were just the opening act. The real war starts now. In the silence that followed, Ruiz whispered into her comm, unheard by most. God help us. The machine web advanced, an ocean of steel and light consuming the rim. Every broadcast across the galaxy carried their message, optimization or elimination. On the Retribution's bridge, silence reigned. Even the hum of the ship felt muted, as though the machines had swallowed sound itself. Admiral Hayes stood with his hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the holomap where systems winked out like dying candles. Options. Colonel Wright's voice was hard. We can't outgun them, sir. Their constructs are the size of continents. We'd need 1 million warships. Hale leaned forward, grease smeared across her brow. Then we don't outgun them. We outthink them. Machines like this, they're perfect. Too perfect. Perfection means predictability. Nexry's glow brightened with realization. Like the Devourers, they could not understand predators. These cannot understand chaos. Hale pointed at her. Exactly. If their strength is order, then our weapon is madness. Ruiz frowned. So what, just charge in screaming? Hale's smile was thin, tired, but fierce. Close enough. The council met in panic. Krina's fur bristled. We cannot face gods. Their power will burn us all. Zephon's hum wavered. Perhaps if we submit. No, Hayes's voice cut like steel. You kneel, you die slower, that's all. The only path is resistance. Velter's crystalline eyes trembled. But how? What could even scratch such power? Hayes turned to Hale. Tell them. Hale spread schematics across the table, rough diagrams scrawled in charcoal and grease. We build chaos weapons, signal scramblers, frequency shifters, false data injectors. They're machines. If we corrupt their logic, they collapse under their own weight. Nexry added, we seed their networks with contradictions. Biological randomness, fear, instinct, emotion. They cannot compute what they cannot categorize. The aliens stared, horrified and amazed. To them, war was madness. To humans, madness was survival. Ruiz's voice was steady. We don't have to destroy them all, just prove they can be hurt. Monsters bleed. Gods can fall. Once we show that, hope spreads faster than fire. Preparations began. Human engineers tore apart shuttles, building transmitters that sang random patterns. Zapirian crystals refracted the chaos into harmonic storms. Arians built chambers that vented chemical clouds, sense machines could not classify. Luminari glowed in sequences like broken code. The coalition was no longer prey. They were becoming predators' allies. Nexri worked at Hale's side, her glow steady despite exhaustion. "When this is done," she whispered, "perhaps we will no longer fear monsters." Hale gave her a sideways look. "You'll still fear us, just for better reasons." The first battle came above a dying star. The machine web descended, spines and rings blotting out the heavens. Their voices thundered across comms. "Biological error detected. Commence optimization." Hayes stood at the command rail. "All ships begin the song." The galaxy screamed. Chaos poured from every vessel. Discordant signals, fractured harmonics, chemical storms, light pulses in random sequences. Human warships dove through machine formations, their paths illogical, impossible to predict. The machines faltered. For the first time, their perfect formations broke. Beams fired into empty space. Constructs collided. A ring structure cracked, fragments spinning away. "They're confused," Hale shouted. "Keep it up." Colonel Wright's frigates darted in and out, striking weak points like wolves tearing flanks. Arians flowed into machine vents, venting corrosive clouds. Luminari projectors blinded sensors. Velcani swarmed debris fields, fast and relentless. And at the center, the retribution sang louder than all, its cannons flashing, its comms blasting nonsense into the machine net. But gods did not die easy. The machine web adapted, algorithms shifted, beams recalibrated, order began to return. One by one, coalition ships faltered. A Luminari vessel shattered, its glow extinguished. An Arian cloud boiled away in a flare of heat. Price's voice cracked. "We're losing momentum, Admiral." Hale's hands flew over controls. "We need something bigger, something they can't adapt to." Nexri's 4 eyes widened. A final chord, all frequencies, all patterns at once, a storm no system could hold. Hayes looked at her. "Can it be done?" Hale exhaled hard. "It'll fry every emitter we've got, maybe every ship, but if it works." "It buys us a future," Ruiz finished. Hayes nodded slowly. "Do it." The fleet reformed, battered but burning. Every ship turned its emitters inward, linking through jury-rigged relays. Zapirian crystals cracked under the strain. Arian chambers vibrated to collapse. Luminari dimmed, giving the last of their glow. Human reactors roared at redline. Hale's hands shook over the console. "On my mark, 3, 2, 1, sing." The galaxy tore open. Every frequency, every wavelength, every chaotic pulse screamed at once. Not a song, a roar, a storm, a madness. The machine web convulsed, towers cracked, rings shattered, a halo structure imploded, ripping a gulf in their formation. Beams fired wild, striking their own kind. Perfect order collapsed into catastrophic chaos. For the first time, the gods bled. On the bridge, Hayes's voice rang out. "Now strike everything you've got." Cannons fired, missiles flared. Alien beams cut through weakened spines. The retribution dove into the heart of the chaos, guns blazing, teeth bared. And then silence. The machine fleet fractured. Fragments drifted, sparks dying. The survivors pulled back, retreating beyond the rim. Their final broadcast echoed in every mind. "Illogical, incalculable, dangerous. We will return." Then they were gone. After the battle, wreckage drifted like a graveyard. Coalition ships floated scarred and broken, hundreds lost, thousands wounded, but alive. In the council chamber, Zephon hummed a low, steady note. "The Devourers feared you, the Cathari tested you, and now the gods retreat. Tell us, Admiral Hayes, what are you?" Hayes looked around the chamber, at Ruiz, bandaged but standing tall. At Hale, her hands burned but her eyes defiant. At Nexri, glowing faint but proud. He answered with a grim smile. "We're humanity. We're monsters with open hands, and monsters with open hands can hold the galaxy together." Weeks later, children played again on Haven's span. Human and Velcani together, building towers from scrap and laughing when they toppled. Nexri walked beside Ruiz, watching them. Perhaps monsters are not so terrible after all. Ruiz smiled. "Depends which way their teeth point." Hale sat nearby, sketching a new design on her pad. Not a weapon this time, a bridge. A machine to bind, not to break. And in orbit, the retribution kept its silent vigil, scarred but unbowed. Far beyond, in the darkness past the rim, the machine gods rebuilt. The Cathari sharpened their knives. The Devourers licked their wounds. The galaxy was still full of predators, but now it had monsters of its own. And when the next storm came, humanity would be waiting.